Imagine waking up to breaking news that shakes the entire NBA. Reports flood social media, Twitter goes crazy, and fans across the world are in disbelief. The headline reads, Giannis Antetokounmpo has been traded to the Golden State Warriors. It sounds unreal, like something straight out of an NBA 2K fantasy simulation. But that's exactly the kind of scenario Bleacher Report's Zach Buckley laid out in a wild three-team trade idea that has everyone talking. In this proposed blockbuster, Giannis Antetokounmpo would join the Warriors, Jimmy Butler would head to the Detroit Pistons, and the Milwaukee Bucks would receive a massive haul of players and draft picks. Now let's be honest, this kind of trade doesn't happen every day. It's bold, chaotic, and it challenges everything we think we know about NBA team building. On the surface, the deal looks explosive. Golden State gets another superstar to extend their dynasty, Detroit lands a proven veteran in Butler, and Milwaukee begins a rebuild with fresh talent and draft capital. But once you dig deeper, the logic behind this move starts to fall apart. Still, it's worth asking the question, could something like this ever really happen, and if it did, how would it change the NBA landscape forever? For the Golden State Warriors, this deal would represent both a gamble and a dream. Giannis Antetokounmpo, a two-time MVP and one of the most dominant forces in the league, joining forces with Stephen Curry would instantly make the Warriors championship favorites again. Even with Curry approaching 37 years old, a duo like that would terrify every defense in the league. Picture Giannis running a fast break with Curry trailing behind the arc. The defenders collapse on Giannis as he barrels toward the rim, only for him to kick it out to Curry for a deep three. That's not basketball, that's art mixed with chaos. Defensively, Giannis would be the missing piece Golden State has been craving since Kevin Durant's departure. His ability to guard all 5 positions, protect the rim, and dominate the paint would completely elevate Steve Kerr's system. The Warriors have always thrived on small ball lineups, switching everything, using speed and intelligence to outplay size. With Giannis, they could play small and still be huge. But that's where the question of chemistry comes in. Giannis isn't known for thriving in a motion offense. He dominates when the ball is in his hands, when he's driving downhill, creating chaos in the paint. Meanwhile, the Warriors' offense is built on rhythm, spacing, and constant ball movement. Could Giannis fit into that flow without disrupting it? Or would Steve Kerr need to redesign the entire system to accommodate him? And let's not forget what Golden State would have to give up to make this happen. Brandon Podziemski, one of their brightest young talents, would be gone. Multiple first-round picks through 2032 would be gone. Their flexibility, gone. Sure, they'd have Giannis, but they'd be pushing all their chips onto the table. After Curry retires, who would be left to carry the torch? The Warriors might find themselves right back at square one, the way they were before 2015, proud, talented, but stuck in transition. Meanwhile, the Detroit Pistons' involvement in this trade might be the most confusing part of all. Why would a rebuilding team, loaded with young talent like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren, trade away its future for a 36-year-old Jimmy Butler? Butler is tough, he's experienced, and he knows how to win, but his timeline doesn't match Detroit's. By the time the Pistons are ready to contend, Butler's best years will be far behind him. The idea that he could teach them how to win sounds nice on paper, but in reality, he'd likely take away minutes and touches from the young players who actually need development. It's like trying to fast-forward a process that can't be rushed. The only way this makes sense for Detroit is if management believes Butler's presence could spark a culture shift, turning the Pistons from a losing team into a competitive one overnight. Maybe they want to show their fans they're tired of rebuilding. Maybe they think Butler's leadership could finally push their young stars to take the next step. But realistically, giving up Jaden Ivey and Isaiah Stewart for that kind of short-term leadership feels like a step backward, not forward. And then we have the Milwaukee Bucks, the team that would be losing their cornerstone, their heart, their identity. Trading Giannis would be unthinkable for most franchises, but if it ever came to that point, this deal wouldn't be the worst return imaginable. The Bucks would receive a young core in Jaden Ivey, Brandon Podziemski, and Isaiah Stewart, plus a veteran in Tobias Harris to balance the salaries. They'd also stack up 5 future draft assets from Golden State, a mix of first-round picks and swaps that could keep them relevant for the next decade. But the bigger question is this: would the Bucks ever do it? Would they ever let go of Giannis, a player who changed the entire culture of Milwaukee, unless he absolutely demanded it? Probably not. And even if they did, they'd likely get a better offer from a team like Oklahoma City, San Antonio, or Toronto, franchises that are stacked with young assets and future picks. So when you put it all together, this trade sounds more like a thought experiment than a realistic deal. It's fun to imagine Giannis wearing blue and gold, running next to Curry and Klay, but it doesn't hold up under scrutiny. The Warriors would lose their future, the Pistons would lose their direction, and the Bucks would lose their superstar. It's the kind of trade that looks amazing in a video game but disastrous in real life. Still, that's what makes it fascinating. Fans love to dream. Analysts love to debate. And in the world of the NBA, where drama and headlines never stop, even the wildest ideas can start con. Giannis carries a massive salary. He is under contract through 2026 to 27, with a player option for 2027 to 28. The Warriors would need to clear large cap space, which likely means sacrificing valuable role players or parts of their core. Yardbarker +1. Asset cost trade package. Analysts estimate the cost to acquire Giannis would include multiple unprotected first-round picks and high-end young talent. For example, one trade scenario has Warriors sending Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, and at least one unprotected first-round. Golden State's available draft assets are limited compared to other contenders. They have to balance keeping picks and prospects versus using them for a blockbuster. Heavy sports +2. Timing and internal priorities. Some sources indicate the Warriors are not at the front of the line for Giannis right now. They reportedly are focused more on role players and internal development rather than a blockbuster acquisition this offseason. Furthermore, Golden State must consider the long term. Curry will age, Green's role will decline, so adding Giannis may shift the timeline of franchise structure and chemistry. Bringing in a superstar of Giannis's magnitude changes team dynamics. Integrating him into the scheme, altering roles of existing stars, managing egos and expectations, all require delicate handling. Part 3. What a realistic plan could look like. Given the obstacles, how might Golden State craft a serious but realistic plan? Asset preservation and flexibility. One key sign that Golden State is preparing is their emphasis on maintaining flexibility for future star acquisitions rather than locking in long-term contracts for role players. For example, they are reportedly avoiding long commitments to Jonathan Kuminga so that they remain open for a possible Giannis-type market. Golden State of Mind +2. Draft pick strategy. Analysts suggest that the Warriors could trade picks such as 2026, 2028 and maybe 2030/2031 first-rounders, or pick swaps, to build a package. As Heavy Sports outlines, Warriors cannot offer their 2025, 2027, 2029 and 2031 since they are not allowed to trade first-rounders in back-to-back drafts, Ted Stepien rule. What they could do is trade the other half of their 2030 pick. Heavy Sports. Player inclusion strategy. A realistic scenario might see the Warriors trade one of their stars, for example Draymond Green, plus young assets, Podziemski, Kuminga, and picks in exchange for Giannis. One mock trade had Warriors getting Giannis, Lakers receiving Draymond Green and Daniel Gafford, Mavericks getting other assets, and Bucks getting a haul. SI +1. Timing alignment. The Warriors may be positioning themselves to pounce on the Giannis market in a season or two rather than immediately. Their reasoning: they maintain flexibility, don't overcommit now, and monitor workload of their core. This gives them a window when Giannis might more favorably consider Golden State, or when Milwaukee is more willing to deal him. Essentially sports +1. Internal decision points. The Warriors have to decide whether to continue with the current core, or pivot to a new era centered around Giannis and Curry, or even shift beyond Curry. They will need to assess how long Curry can be at elite levels, and whether they want to build around Giannis Prime. Part 4. Potential risks and trade-offs. Even if the trade is executed, the Warriors will face significant risks. Depth and role player loss. To acquire Giannis, they trade young players and picks that might otherwise be future contributors. This could thin the roster. Team chemistry shifts. A major addition can disrupt locker room balance. Curry's role, Green's role, and the team's culture may each need adjustment. Injury and age risk. Curry and Green are aging, and investing so much around Giannis assumes the current veterans remain healthy and effective. Return on investment uncertainty. While Giannis is elite, winning a championship is never guaranteed, especially in the Western Conference. If the investment fails, the asset cost is high. Future flexibility constraint. For the Warriors themselves, it would mean moving into an ultra-competitive window where every season is a must-win. They'd likely surround Giannis with shooters and role players, which they already have strength in. It would also mark a transition phase, potentially extending competitive relevance past Curry's prime. For the league, the ripple effects would be vast. Teams like the Milwaukee Bucks would then enter rebuild mode, young men like Podziemski and Kuminga could become central pieces elsewhere, and the entire trade market would shift. However, if the Warriors decide not to pursue Giannis aggressively, it may signal their commitment to internal development and maintaining their current core, showing that some dreams remain just that. Conclusion. In summary, the Warriors landing Giannis Antetokounmpo remains a compelling possibility, one that would immediately elevate the franchise, excite fans, and reshape the NBA hierarchy. But it is far from a sure thing. Contract complexities, asset costs, timing considerations, and internal dynamics all play major roles. Golden State appears to be aligning their future flexibility, preserving assets, and positioning themselves, but they are also realistic about the challenge. For Warriors fans and NBA observers alike, keep an eye on the young assets, Kuminga, Podziemski, draft pick movements, and Milwaukee's stance on Giannis. Those breadcrumbs may lead to whether this dream becomes reality. The Golden State Warriors stand at a crossroads in their franchise timeline. After years of dominance, with the core of Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and a rotating cast of all-stars, the challenge is, how do they stay elite in a league constantly evolving? Enter the possibility of trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo, a generational star whose name has long been floated in trade discussions, including for the Warriors. The prospect of pairing Curry and Giannis is tantalizing, yet the practical hurdles are immense. In this script we'll break down why Golden State might aim for Giannis, what obstacles they face, how they could build a trade plan, and what it all means for the franchise's future. Part 1. Why Giannis makes sense for Golden State. From a pure basketball perspective, acquiring Giannis would instantly elevate the Warriors to a title-contending level, not just in the West but across the entire league. Giannis brings elite two-way impact, rim protection, elite rebounding, dominant drives, and as he's matured, better playmaking. Aligning him with Curry's shooting and playmaking and Draymond's defensive IQ could create a multidimensional attack that few teams can match. Beyond on-court fit, the franchise's strategic motivations also align. The Warriors' front office recognizes that their current championship window needs reinforcing, since relying only on the aging core may reduce margin for error. Moreover, acquiring Giannis would excite the fan base, restore narrative energy, and signal that Golden State remains willing to swing for generational talent. Also, Giannis shares some existing ties, for example, the same agency representation with Curry, both via Octagon, which could ease some off-court negotiations. Yardbarker Plus 2. Part 2. Major obstacles and why the deal is so hard. However, the path to Giannis is littered with challenges. Contract/cap issues. Giannis carries a massive salary. He is under contract through 2026 to 27, with a player option for 2027 to 28. The Warriors would need to clear large cap space, which likely means sacrificing valuable role players or parts of their core. Yardbarker Plus 1. Asset cost trade package. Analysts estimate the cost to acquire Giannis would include multiple unprotected first-round picks and high-end young talent. For example, one trade scenario has Warriors sending Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, and at least one unprotected first-round. Golden State's available draft assets are limited compared to other contenders. They have to balance keeping picks and prospects versus using them for a blockbuster. Heavy sports plus 2. Timing and internal priorities. Some sources indicate the Warriors are not at the front of the line for Giannis right now. They reportedly are focused more on role players and internal development rather than a blockbuster acquisition this offseason. Furthermore, Golden State must consider the long term. Curry will age, Green's role will decline, so adding Giannis may shift the timeline of franchise structure and chemistry. Bringing in a superstar of Giannis's magnitude changes team dynamics. Integrating him into the scheme, altering roles of existing stars, managing egos and expectations, all require delicate handling.